Hey, hobby friends. Your old pal Bo here, the only man on YouTube with the face for radio and a voice for print. Coming at you today, got a lot on my mind regarding games and gaming. Been watching a lot of videos by some friends of ours regarding the OSR and if OSR writers and publishers are actually game developers or writers at all, and what it really means, and if basically if games other than Dungeons and Dragons even count. And I was thinking about that, and I was thinking a lot about earlier RPGs that are not included in the OSR generally. It's a fact that the OSR is basically a D&D revival. That's its roots, that's its origin, and that's okay. Not going to argue with what counts as OSR or not. It's a throwback to a time when D&D was I don't know, simple and lethal and all that. But I think it's time for us to coin a third term. Um, Maybe something like OSP versus OSR, old school play, old school style for games that are from the same era and played with much the same attitude, but are certainly not Dungeons and Dragons based. And there are a number of games that I think fit that bill. I think about games like RuneQuest, Call of Cthulhu, certainly prior to Seventh Edition, Champions Fourth Edition, Cyberpunk 2020. A lot of those kinds of games, and I think they're not OSR games, but they're games that typically go for the whole rulings over rules, more lethality, games that prioritize play over mechanics, and I think about that, and I think that this might have been what the OSR could have been if the OSR might have been thinking outward instead of backward. Adopted the feel and attitude of old school play, but got away from the purely mechanical disadvantages of Dungeons and Dragons. A lot of those things, those baked in features, I call them bugs or just shit mechanics, but class based, level based, linear advancement, the things that make every third level magic user the same as every other third level magic user. I think the OSR had ample opportunities to get away from some of those things, but instead double down on it and double down on the mechanics of Dungeons and Dragons. And it's the point now where, yes, OSR developers are writers. They are developers. I'm not saying that they shouldn't get credit for the things they write or do, but I think that they've pigeonholed themselves by writing. You can argue if it's a first generation OSR game or a second generation OSR game or third generation OSR game. At the end of the day, if you say that these games are still not Dungeons and Dragons, I think you're being a little disingenuous. And I think if pressed, even these successful OSR writers, and I know I know a few, and I know of a lot more, would say that yes, their game is Dungeons and Dragons esque, Dungeons and Dragons reskinned, Dungeons and Dragons with a new hat, and I think it's okay as game players and as game developers to try to look forward. And and I had this very discussion with a game writer, who's got a big indie game, and I'm not here to farm his content, and I'm not here to ride his coattails. But he was talking about the game that should replace D&D. And I said, well, how about if it's not a D20 based game? And he said, well, then it has to be a D20 based game. And my point was, well, then you're just replacing Dungeons and Dragons with Dungeons and Dragons, and that's what the OSR is. It's a replacement for D&D that just, like I said, it's D&D. It's reskinned D&D. It's D&D with a new hat. So these are the things that I think about when I'm not working. I haven't had a whole lot of time to paint lately, or model, or game. I haven't played a game in, even a role-playing game, in going on a month now. I've had a new temporary work schedule that got me working at the end of the week instead of the beginning of the week. And seems that my role-playing game was at the end of the week. I'm just glazing over the green on this one. I had originally painted it a sickly green mutant color. It's one of my test models. I had tested a lot of different color schemes for the skin, and while I did like the green, and for one model, it didn't work for me with 30. And I know that I had said previously that I wasn't interested in embracing the body horror. And here I am painting my poxwalkers in a more realistic tone. If I can save some of the green hues underneath the flesh base coat, and I'll add another flesh wash in a minute, and I'll try to make it, the base, we'll just get a dry brush, maybe again a little bit of gray, and I'll keep it. I have plans for the larger bases, the 32 and 40 millimeter bases, but it's hard to do really anything with these 25 millimeter / 1 inch bases. I think that I might just splash spray some shot green or some toxic green ink. I have some lettuce green ink, alcohol ink. It's called lettuce. If I can find it. There it is. No, lost my light. I'm using a new magnifier, and it's a wonderful lens, but it doesn't have as bright an LED underneath it. It's got a fluorescent bulb, and I tried to find an LED that fit in the same, for the same 4-watt, but I couldn't, with the double bayonet, but I couldn't find it. Anyway, so yeah, I picked up some of this lettuce green, hoping it's not as cartoony as if I were to go with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles shot green. But got some ideas for basing, watching a lot of videos on how to make Nurgle bases. It's weird that with the new Combat Patrol out, and the new Codex, Death Guard is back in the spotlight, and which is weird to me because I bought this Combat Patrol when no one wanted it, and I ended up getting it for a really good price because the pieces were the models were deemed just they had no synergy. You couldn't play them together, and I bought the box not because I wanted to field a Death Guard army or even build a Death Guard army. I just thought that the minis looked challenging, and they certainly have been. Even these these little 28 millimeter, they're just packed with flavor and character and details. I mean, there's little maggots crawling all over his skin, and he's got that big toothy smile. I can paint any color. I can paint it brown, I can make it rotten. I could put some white highlights and make his chompers pop. If any, the only problem I have is, again, there's 30 in the box, and it's 3 sets of 10. But if I did have an army, I could field them, I guess, in squads of 10 to 30. I don't know. I haven't bought the codex. I'm not really interested in buying the codex. Would I play a game? Well, yeah, I would if I knew anyone who was keen on teaching a newbie and who had could show me how to use the rules on one of the websites, because I'm not really super keen on paying $60 for $60 times 2 for 2 books that are going to be. I mean, I'm sure that the new Deathwatch Codex I'm sure it's already had its first rules balance since it was winning all those matches last week. And again, I hate I'm not to jump any bandwagons. I did buy these guys. At least I started building this army. I don't know, 6 months ago or more. I'm just a slow painter. And the problem is, when I paint, I want to fill every nook and cranny. A lot of guys will be like, well, if I can't see it, why do I want to paint it? And I say to myself, well, I can see it. I can see it. All right. I want to give a shout out to my friend Aaron the Dungeon Minister. I was watching a couple of his streams, and it's awesome to see him painting. And see, it's not that I'm such a great painter. I'm really not. It's something that I enjoy, and I'm kind of a detail-driven guy, so I can be my own worst enemy, and I can fuss with them. The only problem is I'm looking at, even this Death Guard army has blossomed into, I don't know, my gosh, maybe 30 miniatures, not including the chaff. And so I just need to get off my butt and paint them. I'm thinking I'm going to base these with even the shoulder pads with a rattling grime, and then sponge on some lead belcher, and then maybe put on some rust pigment, lightly, and then do the boots in leather, I don't know, brown. Put on another Gilliman flesh wash. Hit the details with some of this olive flesh from Procryl. I don't know. It's the rules of hobbying. Like I said, this is your hobby, your way. And I think too many folks get caught up again with it's either D&D or OSR, and I hate you and you hate me, and we can't get along, and I want to play old school games in the old school way, but I can't get my head around the fact that most D&D players, most OSR players, they hate the bell curve distribution of 3d6s, but they still roll 3d6s for their stats. Why don't they just roll a d20 for their stats, right? All or nothing. Balls out. Roll a d20 for your stats. Roll a d20 to hit. Watch my brush going out of focus. But no, they want to roll 3d6 for their stat blocks, but then they want to roll a d20 to hit. It's like, dude, shit, get off the pot. And that's just one of the many little nitpicks that drives me crazy regarding the many brands of Dungeons and Dragons, and they're D&D, right? At least we could. All right, this is the rattling grime. I'm going to get a lot of it off my brush. I'll save that there for I don't like a lot of GW's, Citadel's paints, but they make a few that are just bangers. Rattling Grime is one of them. I could just put it anywhere that's supposed to be black, and with the little slap choppy that I did, it makes everything awesome. And then I'll do the straps brown. I'll pick up that little maggot with the detailed brush in a minute. I'll do the maggot when I do the horns. The boots I'll do brown, and the straps I'll do maybe Gilliman flesh. I don't know. It looks pretty good. Or it looks like a tea stain for his wraps. Look at that. See, it just... And if I do a bonish, if I keep it really thin, pallet bone. You'll have to let me know what you think regarding. I mean, I know these videos don't really get a lot of traction, and that's fine. I'm not really big on the... But what do you think? Old school games, old school play. Why don't we, instead of OSR, we'll call it OSP. OSP, I mean, if they want to take their ball and go home, then we'll take our ball and go home. For people that want to play Rifts, people that want to play older editions of Call of Cthulhu, Champions, GURPS, Pendragon, any of those games. You have to let me know if you've watched the video, if you've paid attention at all, if you have an opinion, let me know in the comments. If you like OSP as a title, something we can make go viral. Or maybe it's already been done. If you can let me know that too, Or which OSP game you'd like to see get a little bit more, a little bit more loving. Which old school games do you like that aren't based on the SRD, D20, OGL mechanic? Because that's what floats my boat. There was a time, if you're old enough, if you can remember a time when, maybe not going back to White Dwarf, because that'd be a little bit older. Yeah, about the same. If you can remember a time when White Dwarf and Dungeon magazines published articles, when Dungeon magazine published articles that weren't D&D based, and when White Dwarf published articles that weren't Warhammer, that would have been pre-1990 for White Dwarf. Maybe, I think White Dwarf issue 100 right about was the last one that published articles that weren't exclusively or weren't for Warhammer games. When a magazine wasn't a house organ, when you could read Space Gamer, when you can read Different World, when you can read, all these magazines. If you can remember that, you might be the kind of, I don't know if you're younger, if I'm just being an old grognard, but you want to remember, or you want to play games like that, drop me a line too. All right. So that's going to be it for this video. It's gone on for 20 minutes. I'm going to try to get some more painting done this week. You can always get a hold of me on Discord at Bo Paints Minis, or Gmail Bo Paints Minis, or on Instagram Bo Paints Minis, or anywhere else Bo Paints Minis. All right. I wish you peace.